Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Kathy Gruber.
And I'm Jason Mefford, and today we're going to talk about Divine Feminine. Ooh, okay. So I know that, that term is kind of thrown around out there, and so we wanted to talk a little bit about it because, like I said, I think a lot of times when people are using that term, or at least from my male perspective, right, when I see a lot of people, women especially throwing that out there and using terms like goddess and everything, that a lot of times it's not actually divine feminine, but it's a wounded masculine that is coming out. And so we thought we'd talk about it today because I know Kathy's had some experiences with this coming up. So Kathy, take it away, and then we'll just kind of go with the discussion from there.
Yeah, so let's see, how do I want to begin? I have been Wiccan since high school. I was raised Catholic. I didn't like it. Come to find out in hindsight, in that retrospective looking back, my mother was not so much Catholic as she was a Mary worshiper. Our house was
big difference.
Filled with Mary. And I didn't get it. It was, let's go to the rosary and let's go to church, and you have to go to church. And it was all about church. And in looking at her surroundings, she had so many Mary statues, and I actually have a few of them that were hers, which is a very special thing to me because I am incredibly connected to Mary, and I channel Mary, and I follow Mary, and all these things. When I was with my former husband, I definitely had more masculine qualities in that relationship. I was in charge of many things. I made more money. I was the organized, pay the bills one. And there was a huge imbalance of masculine feminine in our relationship. And when he and I split up, I had to kind of sort of rediscover who I was. I didn't have space to tap into my feminine because I had to be the masculine one in this relationship, or didn't have to be, but that's the role I took. At my wedding to Eric, which just happened 4 months ago, at the end of our dance, because we did a beautiful dance together, my hair and makeup gal, who I've known for 20 plus years, came up to me and said, Kathy, it was so beautiful to watch you in your feminine and just allow Eric to guide you and lead you and take care of you. I have never seen you more in your sacred feminine. And I went, what? And even though I have been in goddess worship circles since I was 15 years old, and the feminine is around Mary and Persephone and Demeter, and all of these goddesses have been surrounding my environment. I'm looking at 10 books right now on my shelf on goddesses. It was the first time that anybody had pointed out, wow, you're really tapping into your feminine. And I think one of the reasons I was able to do that is, it's going to sound superficial at first, but Eric is young, he's strong, he's big, he's physically protective of me. He has big, broad shoulders, and he's 6 feet tall, and I actually feel petite with him, which is hard when you're 5'8" with my broad shoulders. I feel big. I'm not a bigger girl, but it's like I'm tall and I'm strong. I have big arms, big shoulders. And I actually feel physically feminine with him, which I'm not used to. And because he has grown and evolved and has taken on so much of the sacred masculine, I get to tap into my sacred feminine. And a lot of the things that I used to have to do in the relationship, he just naturally does. And it has left me, very honestly, kind of feeling lost, because it's like those roles that I've had societally for so long, I don't have to have anymore. And so I was talking with my coach yesterday about how do I allow that sacred feminine? How do I tap into that sacred feminine? And one of the things I remembered, and then I'll let you talk, was during my conscious cannabis ceremony, I was just sort of stream of consciousness writing. And one of the things I wrote is, it's taken this long for the beaten down goddess to trust their gods again. And if you look at what's happening societally and what has happened, women have been beaten down for so long that I think we're finally beginning to trust the sacred male again, that we're going to be okay, that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to be allowing, it's okay to be more yin, to be more watery. And so I've been not struggling with it, but it's been something on my mind of how do I tap into that sacred feminine and allow myself to accept that yin again. And so I thought that would be an interesting conversation today.
No, it is. And I mean, I'm on the flip side of it, in this go around, but I think that what you just shared there, the goddesses, are ready to trust their gods again. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's, like you said, it's part of, because I'll give you kind of from the male side too, right? Is that again, we've lived through hundreds of years of male misogyny and control and chauvinism and everything else, right? That was a phase that we had to go through for whatever reason. Don't agree with it, right? Myself, I find myself a white male. I'm the one that everybody's kind of targeting. Like you were the ones that fucked everything up. Well, I didn't. This incarnation, I've only been here for 50 some years, right? Don't blame me for everything, right?
Right.
But you see women having to stand up, and I'll talk about maybe a couple of different ways, right? Is that a lot of times the men have not been pulling their masculine weight. They've been acting like chauvinistic little boys and treating women as sex symbols. And that is not what a god does,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is not what a king does. And so, when behavior like that is out there, it's for especially the stronger women, it makes a lot of sense for them to have to stand up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, Kathy, most of your life you've had to be or fill a lot of those typically masculine roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you see a lot of strong women that have to do that because they're not taken care of. They don't have
Yeah.
somebody to help fill in there. And so when they do, or when there's somebody who wants to, sometimes there's even a little clash in the relationships, right? Because, like you said, you have to be willing to kind of let go some things and let Eric just be,
Mm-hmm.
and he will take care of you. And when you do that, your divine feminine comes out. And that doesn't mean, right, because again, a lot of people are like, well, that means that divine feminines are weak. No, 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 no. Whoa, no, right? We just have different roles.
Mm-hmm.
And the better that we can get about allowing each other to be fully in those roles and as a combination, right, then we end up being stronger.
Yep.
Now on the flip side of it too, again, being a male, uh, I've seen and have experienced some of where women don't want the king to come out because they have been taught that they're strong and they're independent and they need to control things and all this kind of stuff. But what that does is then it never happens,
Yeah.
right? Because the king can never come out, the god can never come out fully, or it's belittled, right? At that point. And so I think, again, that's why so many relationships especially have issues because, and again, gender is not the same as the energies or sacred divine that we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
I'm both feminine and masculine. I am a balance. Kathy is both masculine and feminine, right? But it's how we kind of come into that on our own, and it feels weird, like you said, because especially too from the guy side, being the protector uh can sometimes, at least in the way that our society has said these things, right, is it makes it feel like if I'm a protector, then my woman must be weak. and need protecting, but that's not it.
Mm-mm.
Right. And so actually learning and training myself as to what does it really mean to be a protector. And so just a quick flashback to the episode we did on names. Right.
Oh yeah.
I knew what my first name meant, healer. Do
Yeah.
you know what my middle name Lee means? Protector.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this protection, which again is a king, god, masculine energy of protecting that has been coming up for me more in the last little
Hmm.
bit too. So,
Interesting. It's so fascinating. When I was single for the year that I had my fun year of flame, um, after the first 6 months when I exhausted people I already knew who were excited to date me, I thought I want to try online dating. Like I've always thought that was so cool. And my friends were like, it sucks, it's terrible. I don't know why they're suddenly all smokers, but yeah. And everyone has like this kind of attitude. And I went into it with this playful excitement of I'm going to meet cool people, and if there's a love connection, great. If not, I'm like, to me, it was a big social experiment because I'm just endlessly curious about this stuff. And I cannot tell you how. I can tell you how many. Three guys who I would not put my picture up on the dating site because I'm known enough here locally that I didn't want my picture splattered all over the place. And if somebody reached out and said, "Could you send me a picture?" I would say, "Yeah, just go to kathygroover.com. You'll see everything about me. Like, just you'll see my pictures." And I had at least three men who, after going to my website, said, "Oh, there's no way I could date you. You have a PhD and you travel the world and you wrote books. I'm not good enough for you." And I'm like,
hmm.
what? They were so intimidated by my success, by what I had done. And that was somehow like, we talk about emasculating men. It was like effeminizing me. It's like, why can't I be successful and, like direct at, they were expecting me to play this kind of, oh, you have to come protect me kind of role. And it's
Yeah.
like, even in my strongest feminine, I'm not like that. One of the things I had put in my profile was be financially, how did I say, financially secure or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you work at Starbucks and you make $3.50 an hour. I just want you to be able to pay your bills. I'm not supporting you. And I had two men say, "Oh, well, I'm not rich enough for you." I went, "No, no, 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 no. I didn't say anything about being rich. I just want you to pay your own bills and not have $50 million in debt." They couldn't do it. And it was such an interesting lesson for me of, wow, what am I looking for? And what are these other people perceiving of me just from this outward stuff? It was such an interesting look at the masculine feminine dynamic of what they expected of a woman and how it made them feel as a man. It was really eye-opening to me.
Well, it is because there's falsehoods and distortions that have been perpetuated in our culture about both sides, right? Both the masculine and the feminine. And so, again, for those of us that are actually trying to do it the right way, it's like we got to unlearn all this shit that we've been taught too and realize, just like that from, you're saying there from a finance perspective, right? Look, I don't want you to be a millionaire. I just want you to not be a
Mooch off me.
mooch off me, right? And so it's the same thing from the male side, right? Where I have been in relationships where it really has been mooching off of me and I felt like a slave. And I felt like I was just being used for my money and for my ability to pay for things and take care of, and so obviously that plus a lot of the stuff in culture, right? I mislearned some things, had some trauma that I'm still unpacking, right? And learning that, well, but it's from a different place,
Yeah.
right? It's like if a woman is expecting and mooching and pulling, just like if a man is doing the same thing, it doesn't feel good,
Right.
right? If it feels like it's an expectation and you're not a real man unless you can do these things, well, that doesn't feel right.
Right.
But does it mean that a man doesn't do that? No, it doesn't mean that at all, but it means it has to come from him and from a place of caring. And the underlying economics may look exactly the same. A man
Right.
may be paying pretty much all the bills, right? But it depends on the intention and the expectation from both person.
Yep.
And that's where this energy, the feminine or masculine energy comes in, right? Is it's a beautiful thing for a woman to allow a man to use his masculine energy. It's beautiful for a man to allow a woman in her feminine energy
Mhm.
and not see it as being weak, or anything else, because
Yeah.
that's not what it is. It's just we have different skills and we balance. That's why sacred symbols like the yin and yang, are out there that
Hmm.
represent the balance between the two, and how the two coming together and playing in the balance with each other, uh, uh, is so beautiful. And again,
Hmm.
let's take it as an example. Like, let's go back to medieval times, or old
A
times
restaurant?
when, yeah, medieval times.
I mean, okay.
No, I I'm meaning older, ancienter civilizations where we were using swords and everything,
Oh, that time. Yes.
that
Okay.
kind of thing, right?
Got it.
So again, if you think about it in that standpoint, I mean, normal scenario is sometimes the king and the men have to go off to war, right? To fight, which leaves the women, who are very capable to take care of everything while you're gone, right?
Hmm.
And so the fact that a man protects a woman doesn't mean a woman is weak, because guess what? A lot of times they had to physically protect themselves as well. They had
Oh,
to
yeah.
pick up swords as well, right, while the men were gone.
Hmm.
But also, there's a great tradition from a Native American perspective of the tribe would only go to war if the old women approved.
Mm.
Right. So it wasn't, again, it was the balancing of this, warrior, I want to go fight, I want to go do this, with the
Mm.
wise feminine of, yes, now is time to go, or no, go cool your jets.
Yeah.
Right. We're not going to do it, because that helped to provide balance in the tribe. And it's the same thing in our relationships as well,
Yep.
when we allow each partner to really be there and help balance each other in our energies.
Yeah. Well, and if you look back, probably near around the same time, the king had an advisor who tended to be the wise woman, the witch, the seer, that kind of thing. And in the tribal societies, because women were so closely together, they would typically menstruate at the same time. And so they would have every month what's called the red tent, where all the women would go in there for the 5 days and bleed together and experience that discomfort together and moan together and chant together. And they would come out of that tent with such wisdom, and animals would gather around, maybe more because of the blood they used to make us. It's like I always went, I think I know why they were there. But like animals would gather around and the men couldn't get anywhere near it. And the women would come out at the end of this 5 days with such wisdom, and they would have had visions, and the men anxiously awaited the wisdom and the knowledge that they would bring out of that tent. And the women who were croning, who were past the age of menstruation, would be there guiding these younger women and channeling this energy and channeling this knowledge. And it's that tapping into, that divine feminine and that kind of cosmic wisdom. And I've met so many women who, it's not so much anymore because we're really honoring the whole menopause thing and the croning aspect of being feminine. But it's, the maid is exciting and the mother is so honored in the society. And then the crone is like, she's toss her away, she's an old woman. Hollywood does it. You have to still, Botox yourself and fill yourself to the point where you're still looking 20 at 85. And from here down, it's like, but they have this like weird face where you're like, I don't know what you just did. And, I'm torn on that, because it's like, if to honor your divine feminine, you want to make changes to allow you to feel more beautiful and more young and more vibrant, who am I to say not to do that? And then you get the extreme of that of, oh my God, what have you done to yourself? But it's like, the women gathered and the men anxiously awaited that wisdom. Whereas so often today I see men discounting that. Oh, she's a stupid girl, or, da da da. And having been raised by my dad to be a strong woman, well, he wanted a boy, but he couldn't do that. So he raised me to be a strong woman of, don't let them say you can't do that and you can outrun any guy and you can outthrow and you're just as smart. And, he drilled that into my head. And I think in one way that really helped me because it did allow me to succeed in a way that I did. But on the other hand, it convinced me that I didn't need men, that I could be masculine enough for both of us. And for the longest time, I was not a man, never a man hater, but I picked relationships where there was not that balance. It was completely out of balance. And if I wasn't in control, it wasn't working for me. So, I'm learning and growing too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that, because again, we're trying to talk more about the divine feminine, but it's interesting how, like in that you probably were subconsciously selecting men who were a little weaker, who wouldn't step forward, so that you could, continue to have that kind of control and masculine part of you come out. Where subconsciously I probably was picking women who wanted to emasculate me because for some reason I wanted to be kind of or needed to learn some lessons there, right? And so, now as I'm trying to learn and you're trying to learn, I mean, what does that kind of look like, for you, what you can share just to help other women out there? Because like I said, I know you've been a Wiccan for a long time. You've done a lot of, been in that space. And just what I perceive is a lot of times when some of the goddess talk and other things come up, that it's not actually divine feminine, it's more man-hating, but they think it is. And so maybe if you can kind of explain, your understanding of, well, what really is the divine feminine and how are you trying to step into that?
I'm going to write a symbol down. So we know this as infinity.
Yep.
But what I see it as is the masculine going into the feminine, going into the masculine. There has to be that exchange of energy. There has to be those balances of masculine and feminine. It's what yin and yang is, right? It's that nesting of those two parts. And what I found was I was picking men who couldn't provide the sacred masculine for me. So my sacred feminine was not safe to be exhibited. So if I was vulnerable, which is considered a very feminine trait, if I was dependent, which is considered to be Jungian, very feminine trait, it was in some way bastardized or corrupted or taken advantage of. So my moments of vulnerability were then weaponized against me. So I was convinced that vulnerability was bad, that I couldn't ask for help, I couldn't need anything. And at some point, my ex said, I feel like you don't even need me. And I said, I don't. Isn't it better that I want you? And he said, no. And I'm still not sure how I feel about that exchange, but I didn't need, it's like I can cook my own meals, I can open my own jars, I can relocate my own spiders, I can go to the car store and get my tires changed. Like I didn't need him. And what I'm finding with the dynamic with Eric is I do need him because I have allowed him to help me in a way, to be there for me in a way that I've never allowed before. And I think because he's in a healthy place of masculinity, and I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know if it's just how he shot out of the womb. I don't know if it's the way he was raised. I don't know. There's something about the dynamic between us that allows this cycle to be complete. There's no breaks in it. So I think, yes, as an individual, it is my responsibility and opportunity to find that divine feminine. And I think it's easier if you're in a healthy relationship with someone who knows their divine masculine. And this doesn't have to be a heterosexual couple. I have lesbian friends and gay friends and transgender friends who still exhibit those qualities. So we are not talking about cisgender, heterosexual, heteronormative. I'm talking about two beings who acknowledge that divine in each of them. And I think that's been the shift for me. I think that year of transition I had where I experienced multiple different men and how they were in relationship and how they were sexually and how they treated me, I think that sort of kicked in enough lessons that I'm now in probably the healthiest relationship, definitely the healthiest relationship I've ever been in, but one of the healthiest relationships I've ever seen. I've seen, as a life coach and a relationship coach, I've seen a lot of relationships. So I think his allowing of that and his encouraging of that. I have a torn hamstring right now, and I re-irritated it in Vegas because I had to jump on a Velcro wall. Because why would I not jump on a Velcro wall? And I knew it might hurt me, and I don't regret any of it because I've always wanted to jump on a fucking Velcro wall. And when I heard the snap, I went, ah, shit. Well, I had fun. So for the last couple days in Vegas, I was trying to not get up as much, and I finally at one point texted him and said, I am so sorry to make you do all this extra stuff to take care of me. And he says, oh my God, how many times have you taken care of me? And I wrote 6. That's what popped in my head. And he writes back, okay, 1, no, a lot more than 6. And then he pointed out, you make lunch for me every day, and you fill my water bottles, and you make sure we have clean clothes, and there's always toilet paper. I don't know how it appears there, but the thing always has toilet paper. And we were talking about how we take care of each other. And there's this flow of that, infinity of that, taking care of each other and flowing one into the other. So that's my take on that right at this moment.
No, and it's interesting because, like you said, I'm probably in the healthiest relationship that I've been in too because of that as well, right? And trying to, it's still for both of us, it's the same thing, right? I mean, we're still trying to learn based on, past things because she's had to be kind of like you, Kathy, the provider, the, single mom, all this kind of stuff,
the independent,
the independent, everything. And so, I heard the same thing about, if I feel vulnerable, if I don't feel protected, then all of a sudden, right, the Amazonian has to come back. And it's like, fuck, I don't like her sometimes. Because it's
like a place for that. That is needed because when we're walking down the street and someone's coming towards us, we're going to have to protect ourselves. So that's the tough balance for me is when do I need to let that masculine out? And I found that I let it out at times when it didn't need to be. So it sounds like your girlfriend is very similar.
And even the same thing though, too. I mean, for it is that, changing our attitude about it, right? Just like how Eric was saying, well, look, he wasn't coming from a place of negative energy of saying, oh my gosh, Kathy hurt herself and I can't believe I have to help her now, right? That's not the divine masculine, but it's him taking care of his queen, when she needs it. And like you said, you both do little things. I mean, he can list all the stuff like the toilet paper showing up and his water bottle getting filled. You could probably list things that he does for you as well that are kind of behind the scenes that you don't even realize that it's happening, but you're just going through this flow together. And of course, sometimes we get annoyed with each other and something happens or we regress back a little bit and things get a little bumpy and then you go back to the flow again. Right. But it truly is when we act from our divine center and when the partner acts from their divine center, it's scary, but it's beautiful at the same point.
Yep. Yeah. It's very different. And it's interesting. I'm rewatching, Eric's watching for the first time, Sex and the City, the series. And the relationship with Miranda, who's the attorney, who's very much in her masculine. She's always had to be. She's been a single woman. She's now in a relationship with Steve, who's very feminine in his way. He doesn't make as much money. He's a bartender. He's a little bit shorter than her. He's, so it's like the casting was just brilliant. And it's been interesting to watch the dynamic between them as a relationship because she's the one that makes the money. And, at one point they broke up because there was this big event that she needed to take him to, and he needed a suit. And he had this like velvet suit from high school where she's like, yeah, you're not going to wear that. And so they go shopping and the suit's $3,500. And he's like, I can't afford that. She goes, no, I know, it's my treat. And he freaked out that he couldn't afford it. He completely felt emasculated. And the next day he showed up and broke up with her because I'm not good enough for you. I don't make enough money. You're so much more successful. And he couldn't allow that gift. He couldn't allow that dynamic to flow. And then they get back together and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it was so interesting to watch that from such a, distanced place, and to see Eric watching that for the first time, because he's like, Steve, what's wrong with you, man? You're throwing away a really great relationship. So from his perspective, Steve was, well, I was just like, it's been fascinating. I so digress with that, but it's been so interesting to watch the dynamics and the divine masculine, feminine of those different relationships in Sex and the City.
Well, and I don't think it's necessarily a digression, because as you were talking about it, I mean, again, you and I both have different things that we've come to relationships believing, things that we've been taught over time. And I think, really the divine feminine, divine masculine relationships don't necessarily follow the stereotypes or the expectations that society has placed upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, but I think it also, it looks different for different relationships, right? Like,
Oh God,
like sometimes, yes, the woman is the one who brings home the bacon, and the man fries it up in the pan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I mean, I remember, one of the managing partners that I worked for in public accounting, her and her husband were both in public accounting when they met. And so in their relationship, they had to decide, only one of us is going to make partner. One of us has to kind of step back a little bit in the relationship and deal with the kids and the PTA meetings and some of the other stuff. And so in their relationship, he chose to step back because he didn't enjoy the work as much as she did either. Right. And so in their instance, yeah, she was the one bringing home all the money. He was doing all the other stuff. Right. Who brings home the money doesn't matter. Right. And how much there's no, like you said, you didn't care if somebody worked $3.50 at Starbucks.
Yeah.
It's like, can you take care of yourself? Are you not a victim? Are you actually taking care of yourself? Because the numbers don't matter.
Right.
And the same thing, it's like all the stereotypical things like, well, cleaning is for women. And
right. Well, and that's what I was just going to say. So if you can't take care of me financially, how can you take care of me? Can you make sure the groceries are done, or the house is clean, or the cat is brushed? Or just because I make more money doesn't mean there's not other ways that I could be cared for. And that's been a theme throughout my life of what are you contributing to this partnership? Because if you want it as a partnership, then there's going to be different roles. I mean, during COVID, Jesus, I couldn't work. We both sat there on unemployment going, oh, okay. Hopefully we can make this work. And we did it as partners. All right, well, we could talk 5 hours on this.
Yep.
We should probably go. Okay, so male and female, go out, tap into your divineness, your sacredness, and share that with your partner or partners. Yeah, maybe you're polyamorous. Good for you. Share it with your partners. I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygruver.coach.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out and have a great week, and we will see you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.